I'd like to thank the patrons of this podcast. Patrons are folks who believe in this podcast and my mission and really support what I'm doing so that I can continue doing it. They make a monthly contribution through Patreon, a platform where you sign up to contribute at whatever level you're comfortable with, and you get some interesting rewards like my ebook, discounts on FUMS merchandise, and behind-the-scenes goodies. If you'd like to be part of that community and help this podcast to continue, please go to fumsnow.com/support, and thanks in advance. Quick shout out to Steve Woodward at podcastingeditor.com for the fantastic work on this podcast, including editing, show notes, and ingenious ideas. If you'd like help with your podcast, whether you're just starting out or an old pro, visit podcastingeditor.com and tell Steve I sent you. Welcome to the FUMS Now podcast show, where you'll gain information, inspiration, and motivation for living your best life with multiple sclerosis. Find us online at FUMSnow.com. I'm your host, Kathy Reagan Young. My guest today is Kim "Kid" Curry, a former radio DJ and executive who worked in high-profile positions in some of the hottest radio markets, often rubbing elbows with big-name musical entertainers like Gloria Estefan, Snoop Dogg, and Jay-Z. He was living La Vida Loca in Miami when MS showed up. He detailed his radio career and his challenges with MS in his new book called Come Get Me, Mother, I'm Through. And he's here today to tell us all about it. Let's go meet him. Hey, Kim, thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for doing it. I've been looking forward to this particular podcast.
Oh, me too. Yes. Me too. I just loved your book. I can't wait to dive into it. So, but before we get there, if you would please just tell everybody a little bit about yourself prior to your MS diagnosis, which is so interesting.
Okay. I played 33 years in broadcasting. My dad was a news guy in the only radio station in my hometown, and he got me a job when I was 17 years old. And started in the radio broadcasting business back then. Went to college at the Southern Colorado State College for a couple of years, and then got my first full-time job. Ended up 33 years, 25 of those 33 years, I was in Miami, Florida. I bounced around to San Antonio, Texas, Knoxville, Tennessee, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. Mm-hmm. But I spent, is that where you are in D.C.?
No, that's where I grew up.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm in Southern Virginia now, but
I see. Okay. But I spent 25 years of the 33 in Miami. When I got there, I was the new kid on the block. In fact, New Kid in Town by the Eagles had just come out, so they kept playing that song. And then,
and you were the 25. Kid.
I was the kid. That's right. Yeah. Kid Curry, my radio name. So then the last 9 years, I was the program director of Power 96, which was the original station I went to work for 25 years prior in a different form, a different legal form, because it had some legal problems. But I ended up being able to run the radio station. We had the most success in the entire run of the radio station's history. And then I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. Everything changed.
Yeah. So at this point, you're the successful radio guy. You're happily married.
Yes, ma'am.
And you start noticing some disturbing, what turn out to be neurological issues. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Kathy, some of those things appeared in my life that I didn't know what they were.
Right.
Specifically, the one that sticks out that I'm going to bring up right now was when I was in Washington, D.C. I was on Wash FM, and I was on the radio at night on Wash FM. And at the end of my radio show, I had a feature called Bed Check. Mm-hmm. And in the markets I'd been in prior, it was always a high school feature, a junior high feature, where the little kids would call in and make jokes about their school classmates or their teachers or their brothers and sisters. But in D.C., it got a very political slant.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Gee, surprise, surprise. And this caller kept calling and saying, "Hey, it's me, Frank the Framer. I'm over here at the White House." And I kept thinking, yeah, sure. So I thought it was a joke. And then one night he said, the president was just in my office listening to the Bed Check. And I was like, what? So I finally got him off the phone one day and I said, "Listen, who are you? What is this?" He said, "Well, my name, Frank the Framer. I am the actual framer of portraits at the White House." And the president comes down to my office sometimes, and he just happened to be here listening to the Bed Check the other day, and he thought you were funny because he, of course, is an old radio guy.
Wait, which president?
And President Reagan, I'm sorry, all the way
Okay,
back
that's
to
okay.
I guess it would have been 80 something. I don't remember
Mm-hmm.
where.
Yeah.
Um, but so President Reagan at one time even invited me to one of his inauguration parties. But never mind. Let me get off the subject here. So a friend of mine wanted to take their grandmother on a tour of the White House, and the grandma said, "Well, if you know somebody over there, you got to get me in there." So I called my friend Frank DeFramer, and he says, "Listen, man, you just go ahead when you come on in. Just tell them that you're here for Frank DeFramer, your kid Curry. They'll know you're coming." So
Yeah.
when I got there, now this was just after the assassination attempt on President Reagan, they'd made a few changes at the entrance to the White House, but not necessarily anything one would recognize,
Right. And not like now.
not like now. But there was a road I saw that went, look, it goes right up to the side door. I'll go that way.
I
And so
remember
as I
that road.
started going that way, um, they started coming at me. I mean, you could see guns coming and people walking
Oh,
up towards my
jeez.
car, and I start to have an adrenaline rush. And as I start to slow the car down to stop it, I go to put it in park, and my shoulder gives me a real intense pain, and then I lose vision in my right eye. And so when I go to get out of the car, my legs didn't work. So I just come rolling out of the car, and there's
Oh,
these Secret
jeez.
Service guys are pointing guns at me, and I'm like, "I'm here for Frank DeFramer. I'm Kid Curry. I'm here," and they're like, "Oh, kid,
Sorry.
hey, how you doing? We got you all covered. Do you need a wheelchair?" I had a
Oh,
grandma in the back seat, and they're asking
right.
me if I need a wheelchair. So,
Right.
but that was an exacerbation. I didn't know what it
Yeah.
was. It just
Right.
because we know that stress can kick
Yeah.
off exacerbations. I didn't know what it was.
Oh, and you found it stressful that people were running at you with guns? Huh.
Not in the least.
How odd.
Well, little things like that happen a few times. I happened once in Washington D.C. in New York City too. But in this particular case, around 2004, I was at home, left Miami on a vacation to come home for Christmas to see my mom. Brought my whole family out here, and it's when the tsunami hit. Now, if you
Mm,
remember, it was devastating, and we
it
were seeing it
was.
on
God.
TV for the first time because we've never seen a tsunami, but we
Right.
could see it. And my poor mother was devastated. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't even know what the word meant. So
Yeah.
it was an intense time for that week I was home. And when I left, she said, "You know, you don't look right. You don't look like you can even walk straight. Your face looks different." And I just told her, I said, "Mom, I'm under stress
Yeah.
because my job is intense. Plus, we just went through this. You just saw
Right.
me because I'm stressed out over the tsunami. I'm okay."
Mm.
About a month
Mama
later,
knows.
mama knows, mama knows. But about a
Mhm.
month later, I was over at I lived on Don Shula's golf course, the late coach who just passed away recently. He has a
Mhm.
golf course there and houses around it. And I lived on the seventh hole of the golf course. When I moved there, I wanted to play golf all my life, but for a couple of years, I finally got to take lessons, and I was good enough to where I could play with people. And I would get up every morning by 6 o'clock, and I'd be on the golf course for an hour and a half playing 9 holes before I went to work, because in Florida you can do that.
Right.
One morning I took a swing, and I felt something just in my back just give me this electrical shock. And as you
Mm.
know, lesions appear in the spine. And that led me, surprisingly enough, to a chiropractor. I thought, I just got something. I just need my back adjusted. And then the
Right.
chiropractor took a few minutes with me and said, "There's nothing I can do for you. There's something else. Look at your feet.
Mm.
Your toes are curling. Something's
Wow.
going on." And she's the one who sent me to a neurologist,
Oh,
actually
that's
to my
great.
doctor. And then my doctor sent me to a neurologist, which
Mhm.
began the process. And we all
Right.
know what that's like. So,
Yeah. Good times, good times.
yeah,
So, I'm just gonna hop forward then
please. Yes, ma'am.
to you getting diagnosed. I was so surprised at the story you shared of what was uh, most likely that first MS flare. Let me talk about that for a minute, because you were in New York City for meetings and had that horrible leg and foot cramping and hot and cold flashes and vision issues, and you could hardly get out of bed. Here's what shocked me about that. You flew home to Miami and you went to bed, but you didn't go to the doctor. I was so intrigued by that reaction. Do you think that were you in denial? Were you scared, or you
Oh,
just didn't think it was that big of a deal? Or, I mean, that
I
was a
just,
huge deal.
well, I thought I had a cold, because remember, there
Oh
was
my God.
what you're talking about actually happened between my mother and then the golf game. I was in New York City, and that's when that happened. I
Yeah.
still didn't know what was happening.
Right.
I just thought I had the flu.
Oh my
I
God. I
just
thought
thought
I
I
had
had a
the flu
really
for my
bad flu.
first flare too, but I didn't have wow, I just had to ask
It was
because that's major. And I just thought, I think I would have gone to the doctor, but maybe not.
it was the golf thing.
It was the
Trust
golf
me.
one that,
Yeah,
right.
had to protect the golf game. What's wrong
Oh,
with my golf game?
I know all about that. My husband's a golf pro, so
I
I
see.
know
Okay.
all about
Yeah. Very
it. The
good.
dedication. Um,
Yes, ma'am.
so you get diagnosed, and actually, you got the news. This is crazy during a business meeting on a call from your doctor, and you
Yes.
told all the people there. First of all, that's a hell of a phone call to get. and
Yeah.
and it seems you never even considered keeping it quiet, which is intriguing to me because I didn't either, but I get this question all the time. Should I share? Shouldn't I share? How much should I share? Yada yada. And it seems you took the call. I don't know, were you in shock and just came back in and told everybody? Have you ever regretted that?
Well, I can tell you that you're right. That is something a lot of people address. And it was a shocking call to take
Yeah.
at a business meeting. But I
Right.
knew it was coming. I told the doctor to go ahead and give me a call. I just walked off into a room and took the call, then came back out and just blurted it out. But I was in a place in my company and I was doing so well. I wasn't afraid. I
Yeah.
knew that they would figure out how to keep me. And they
Mhm.
tried to keep me. Because remember, that was a Friday. Over the weekend, my wife did the 2005 version of Google to try to figure out what was actually going on.
Yeah.
And we didn't like what we read all weekend long. We
Yeah.
could see that because now I could start going, well, wait a minute, that happened to me a couple of years ago.
Right.
Well, wait a
Oh,
minute,
yeah.
this has been happening for a while. Wait a minute. So
Right.
over the weekend, we could see that there was a problem. That's why I went in 48 hours after I found out and said, see ya. You guys got to
Yeah.
figure this out. I'm out of here.
Right.
And then they
Yeah.
tried to keep me on. But
Yeah. So that's the next question I had for you because that was it. You're an intriguing dude all the way around to me, but you immediately decided upon your diagnosis to quit your job, sell your dream home in Miami, and move to Colorado where you grew up. It seemed to me so fast. It made me feel like I am really indecisive, which sometimes I can be, but um, you didn't even know what having MS meant at that time, other than the kind of Googling, and I'm using my air quotes now,
yeah,
that you had
right.
done. Do you wish you would have slowed down a bit or just lived with it for a time before making, those major life decisions like giving up your life's work?
I think we have to deal with where we are at the time, and the
Yeah.
progression to me seemed awfully quick.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me that, Dr. Calagua, my first MS, the one who actually diagnosed me, um, told me, you need to get ready because things are going to change for you dramatically.
Buckle your
And I
seatbelt.
have faith in my doctor.
Yeah.
I just decided I'm done. And
Yeah.
fortunately, financially, I could just goodbye.
Right.
And
Oh my gosh.
it just was going to be done. And my wife and I decided it was time to go take care of me. She
Right.
this thing that I did in broadcasting, whether or not anybody believes it or not, it can be very stressful.
Oh,
Being on the
yeah.
radio even 4 hours a day, which is what I did a primary amount of my time on the radio for 33 years. But when you're the program director, and I had a reputation in Miami because it was the most listened to radio station in the Southeast USA for longer than when I was there, but it had
Hmm.
more success while I was there. So I thought about every minute of that radio station. And my wife
Right.
knew that I had to get away or I'd never be able to shut it off. And it
Yeah.
took me years to slow
Right.
down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Back to that stress thing.
Yeah.
So I shared with you my husband is a golf pro. So I was
Yes, ma'am.
so interested to read about the golf throughout this book and
Yes.
how much of a love it was of yours, how much time you dedicated to it, and you seem to so enjoy it. I'm so sorry it became more of a struggle than it was fun for you. I'm sure you miss that. Have you replaced
Well,
that now with cooking? Sounds like.
well, I want to get back out on the golf course someday.
Yeah,
And
good.
what's happened is, my legs are such that they don't work, except for they're seizing right now because we're talking
Oh,
and the adrenaline's running. My legs
sure.
are sticking straight out. But in America, we have designed a golf cart for handicapped disabled people like me
Mm-hmm.
that just basically the seat, there's two seats in the golf cart. You've been in one.
Mm-hmm.
The passenger seat turns and turns to the side, and then it comes up a little bit, and you're basically swinging from a sitting position.
Mm.
in Germany, they have devised a golf cart that wraps around you and actually stands you up all by
Oh, wow.
itself. And you have your little golf clubs here, and it stands you up, and you can take a swing supported totally from standing up position.
Mm.
I've been trying for the last 5 years. I told the guy I would. Here's what they do. I can't even, because it's lost my. I forgot the name, but they go to handicap hospitals around, brain hospitals around America, like in
Mhm.
our hospital, Craig Hospital here in Denver. They
Mhm.
have one of these golf carts, and they encourage veterans, disabled veterans, to come and play. Well, I'm not a disabled veteran, and I feel
Right.
funny even going to them and saying, "Hey, I just want to go play golf,"
Right, right, right,
But
right.
so I know these golf carts are out there.
They exist.
They are there, but they're only at specific locations in America.
Right.
And I'm determined. In fact, my wife just got some of her clients on the deal. Someday I'm going to get somebody to import one of these from Europe for me, and I'm going to get back on the golf course someday.
Oh, I have no question that whatever you say you're going to do. Reading this book was really inspirational to see how you just kind of took whatever, I don't know, blockade came in your way, and you and your wife just kind of together went, okay, well, now what do we need to do, and do it. It's really inspirational, and so I'm confident you'll be playing again.
Well,
Confident.
when you say that, I think a lot of what goes on in my head is I don't have MS. In
Mhm.
my brain, I'm trying not to think about it. In fact,
Amen.
I'm going to try to give you the synopsis of what happened to me. For the 10 years, 11 years, I had really terrible, bad MS. I was
Mhm.
going down bad. My legs, my shoulders, everything was going down. When I first got diagnosed in 2005, there were only 5 MS drugs, but there were more came along the line, and then Copaxone. My doctor moved me from Rebif to
Yeah.
Copaxone. Rebif really caused those welts under my skin. They're still there, and
Yeah.
Copaxone, so I did that. I changed the medicine, but
Mhm.
but my doctor, he's the
Mhm.
kind of guy that doesn't do anything unless he's got scientific proof. For 6 months,
Mhm.
he harassed me. You've got to start taking vitamin D. You got to start taking vitamin D, Copaxone and vitamin D. You've got to start doing that now. And I
Mhm.
fought him because I'm of the generation that saw vitamin C was supposed to take care of your colds, and that's not been proven. So I never
Mhm.
thought a vitamin would change anything. But my wife finally convinced me after 6 months of being harassed, and I started taking massive amounts of vitamin D. At that point, my condition leveled off. And
Mm.
it took a few months, but actually, about 6 months after taking the vitamin D, I had my doctor appointment. And I said, doctor, it seems to me that things are leveling. I don't feel like I'm going down as much. So a year after that, my doctor said, you need to get your brain working right now. Because I was having the same problems MS patients have. You could hardly hear me. I mean, my
Mm.
voice was so intermittent.
Mhm.
But he said, you've got to start rewiring your brain. And of course, I believe that. So I started working really hard and doing brain games. But then I switched my life over from being a radio DJ to becoming a writer.
Mhm.
I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to tell the story about what happened to me and how my wife and I attacked this and how we've come out on top and how I'm still sick. Every now and then I'll have an exacerbation. My shoulders always bad. My eyes fail,
Mm.
but I don't think I've got this. I'm going forward here.
Mhm.
So that's why I wanted to write this book in the first place.
I love that.
So it was kind of a transition that when I finally leveled off and I could finally see the progression that maybe I could fix this. So I believe I've rewired some of my brain. My
Very
voice is
cool.
not as bad as it was.
Mhm.
Uh, my eyes still suffers, but not as much as it did. So I don't know, and I go to meetings with men over 50 who have MS, and I
Mhm.
see them who've been taking their medicine, some of them for years, and have never gotten the satisfaction I've gotten. And
Mhm.
some of them even said, I'm not going to take medicine anymore. And then they don't come back to the meeting. I
Yeah.
hate seeing that, but I've been so
Yeah.
lucky. I feel almost embarrassed because I'm not as bad as I was.
Right. No, I get that. I get that. I feel like that too. I wrote an article about survivorship, basically, and feeling that guilt of why am I doing better than others? Like, do I deserve that? There's all of that psychological stuff that plays in there that can really get to you. I just had a conversation yesterday about, I always call myself Cleopatra, Queen of Denial, but it works for me. I'm like, oh yeah, I have MS. I mean, I just try not to make it a focal point. I try to just deny it. I really truly try.
Well,
And I try not to think about it, although I must say this is what I do. This is my joke. I'm a patient advocate, so I do this all day, every day, but it's funny how I separate myself almost, like I'm trying to help people who are dealing with this. And obviously I know that I have it, but I don't know. I just don't make it a focal point in my life.
I've heard that some scientists talk about the resilience of
Yes.
the brain and the resilience of attitude.
Yeah.
And I am confident. In fact, I brag about my wife, but since you read my book, my wife has become a full-time business coach now. She works at 7 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock every afternoon, and every 30 minutes she's got a new client from somewhere around the
Good
world.
gracious.
And she has their her profit loss. She has their financials. In fact, when the pandemic blew up, it was on a Friday when the president shut down America. On Monday, my wife was already having corporate meetings trying to remind everybody that now, as a business coach, you've got to get people ready for when this starts again, because we're going to be
Right.
down for a while, but you need to get your businesses ready. So I've got a
Mhm.
very positive wife, a wife who
Yeah.
sits there and tells people, regardless of what's happening out there, we've got to get these businesses under control. And
Mhm.
I'm telling you, I mean, her clients are all successful. And if you
Yeah.
do what she tells you, she tells them to have 6 months of reserve funds. So
Right.
nobody got hurt here. So
Yeah. And
it's
you're surrounded by positivity.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. Key, probably.
Yes, ma'am.
Me too.
Yes, ma'am.
We're lucky people.
Yes, ma'am. Our caregivers are so vital, and
Oh,
mine
truth.
is superior. So I'm
That's
a
my,
lucky
oh my
guy.
God. I just have to say, the love that dripped off the pages of this book for your wife was so touching. I had to think if I was your wife reading that, I would be crying as I turn these pages. It is so sweet. You're so proud of her and you're
Yeah.
so in love with her. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Well, I'm proud to the point to where, I knew that what in my mind was I was going to die. I could very
Mhm.
well die from this. And I wanted my wife to succeed. I
Mhm.
wanted her to be ready in case.
Yeah.
So she started her own life with just doing some dabbling in real estate, but then had huge success. And now she
Yeah.
coaches real estate people from around the world on how to
Right.
do the job. So,
Well, that was really neat. I loved that part. I loved a lot of parts of your book, but that
well,
that love leapt off the pages for sure. That was really neat. Um, so you made some really interesting observations about our healthcare system in this country in your book, and you
yes.
in fact said, "quote It costs a lot to be disabled in America." And I want to give you an opportunity to share what you mean by that and what you'd like people listening to take away from this.
Well, for those of us who deal with this every day and we realize the reality, yeah, your insurance is going to give you a wheelchair for your house. And if you are like me and your legs don't work, you're going to need a motorized wheelchair. But if I need to leave this house, I need to figure out how to get this chair into a car or onto
Right.
a ramp to get it onto the side of the car. And that stuff costs money. You
Mm-hmm.
don't pay for that. That all comes out of your pocket. Um, and I have to have a motorized wheelchair, my wife and I had to make a decision. Either we get a bigger vehicle to take the wheelchair in, or we get you a manual wheelchair. And so I have manual wheelchair for the car. I can zoom
Mm-hmm.
up to the car, get in it, and then reach around and get my wheelchair and keep going. But that all
Mm-hmm.
costs money. And that was a
Yeah.
$5,000 wheelchair. Just the one in the car is a $5,000 wheelchair.
Right.
And it's like, if you want to, my wife affords me with all luxuries. I get to drive. I mean,
Mm.
I've been driving with no legs. I have hand controls in my car, but those cost money.
You're right.
In my state, you have to find someone who will teach you how to go through their lessons, be certified by them. Then you have to go to the state to get certified. And that was a real joke. I think think I brought that up in the book. I
You
mean,
did. Mm-hmm.
you know, I lived in a very small town in Colorado here at the time, and I went to them to get certified for hand controls. And we don't test for that here. You need to go over to Pueblo, which is 30 miles away.
Mm.
So I went over there the first day, and I rolled up and was ready to get certified. And they looked at me like I was nuts. Well, we'll have to get somebody certified to get you certified. So you got to come back in a week. So I came back a week later, and they didn't have anybody yet. And I had to drive 60 miles round trip.
Right.
So there's 2 trips. So then the third time I go, and I get there, and there's finally someone who can test me, and I roll out to my car, and I put my wheelchair away, and I get in my car, and the lady gets in my car, and I had the radio on, an oldies station, which I used to be the boss of, and she reached over. I reached over to turn it down. She says, "Oh, no, that's my uncle. Leave it on." And I said, "Oh, your uncle? He used to work for me." And she's like, "You're kidding. Give me that piece of paper." And she signed it. And I had left the parking lot. And so I had gone through 6 weeks of abuse, having to go back and forth, had to travel 70 miles 4 times, to do the testing to get the hand controls in the first place, and then 3 times to get tested. And then I didn't even have to go out the parking lot. She knew that, hey,
right.
Okay, so here, let me sign that.
Oh,
so,
man.
Let's just go driving around a little bit, please.
Right. Let me show you that I really do know
Come
how to do
on,
this.
I know how to use these things. But that all costs money, and
yes.
So and
the medication.
Medication. Oh my Lord.
And the doctor visits.
Oh yes, ma'am.
And yeah.
And I've got ramps into my house. I have an elevator that gets me into the second floor. My wife had to get an elevator installed. So all of these things cost money.
Right.
And it does cost to be disabled in America, or you'll sit in your house.
Right.
And that's not fair.
No, that's not right. I totally agree. And then you got so lucky. As I was reading this, I really did get angst about when you were going to just leave your job. And I thought, oh my God, he doesn't know all of these expenses that are going to be coming his way. And he's just leaving. You got so lucky with you didn't even know you signed up for long-term.
You know what?
Insurance. That's crazy. But how lucky.
Yes. Phyllis Poulos, our office manager, running a radio station the size of Power 96 at that time, I'm telling you, it was not funny, but it was great. I loved it, but it's high power all the time.
Yeah.
And my office manager would often come in my office and throw papers down and say, sign this and sign this. And one time she had come in and put a piece of paper on and I signed it, and it was long-term health care.
Oh,
and I had no
Phyllis.
In fact, I resigned before I even knew
I
had this.
I'm telling you, I was worried as I'm turning those pages thinking, shit, he does not know what's coming his way. He can't just quit.
I had no clue.
But
I was leaving. I was going to go home no matter what. I needed to run home to mom. But then, of course, this long-term thing came out, and fortunately, it's taken very good care of us. And
yes.
And now that my wife, and that ends, by the way, that ended when I turned 65. But now my wife has got such a role going with what she does. We're doing very well. I'm
That's awesome.
Very lucky.
But to the point of healthcare issues in the U.S., lots of people aren't in that situation, and lots of people are, lose their job and don't have any.
Especially right now. I mean, I don't know. There's got to be so many people with big pits in their stomach not knowing what to do. And unfortunately, I'm saddened by the leadership, and it's a whole nother topic. Never mind.
It is, but we can say, vote.
All the time. Please do.
Vote.
Absolutely.
Educate yourself and vote. I mean,
in fact, I did a on my website. Not that it matters. I did a 2020 commencement speech that I'd written out, and then I actually did it live on Facebook. But the whole point is for young people to get involved, because what they are doing is they're eating off the plate that was given to them by their parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents, because young people don't vote. They're living this life today because they haven't been involved. They need to get involved. And now that I think we've got this, you're not just seeing Black people riot or protest. You're seeing all sorts of colors, and they're all young. And I'm hoping that now is going to be a turning point to where we get young people involved because if their parents cared about them, they would have done something about climate change. Have your parents done anything about climate change? I was at the first Earth Day in 1972. We yelled about it back then, and no one's done a thing. So it's pretty evident we're in trouble here.
That which has been done has recently been undone.
Yes,
but that's a whole nother episode.
A whole nother. Yes,
but the bottom line is vote. It's our responsibility
and
our right. So
in fact, when I'm finished here, I've got to vote because we do mail-in ballots here. We have a primary that I've got to get voted, mail in my ballot here sometime this next couple of days. So
excellent. Good. Yeah, we've got primaries coming up here on the 23rd too.
And you can do mail-in ballots, by the way. The mail-in ballots work. Okay.
They do. And there really is no proven fraud. So I'm just going to leave it there.
Yes. I'm sorry, we keep doing that, but never mind.
I know. So, Kim, I really enjoyed reading your book and learning more about, a fellow MSer. And I've enjoyed talking with you today. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. And if people want to ask any questions or just reach out to you, I've been watching your Facebook Lives, by the way, which are really enjoyable. But where do they find you? Give me all of the places they can find you.
All right. My Facebook page is just under Kim Curry, KIMCURRY. I have a website, krcurry.com. And that's where I put my blogs and have information on my books and things like that. And I've been really adamant about my blogs lately. About a month before George Floyd was killed in front of us on national television, I started reading To Kill a Mockingbird. And, I don't know if you had to read that or if you remember what the book is all about. Man,
I was an English major, so I read it all.
Good. And then I just got finished with Go Set a Watchman, only to find out that Go Set a Watchman was the first thing she wrote.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Believe it.
I know.
Because I had read both of them, and I thought, well, that was interesting how she brought that paragraph from To Kill a Mockingbird and put it into Go Set a Watchman. I thought, as a writer, I'm stealing that idea.
Yeah, right.
That was genius. And then I come to find out it was the other way around. She took it from the first paragraph from the second. So awesome, though. I loved it. So anyway, krcurry.com. That's where you can find me on my Facebook at Kim Curry, or KR Curry, the author, is another one at Facebook too.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. And finally, we here in the FUMS Nation speak to this stupid disease as it deserves to be spoken to, and we tell it FUMS every day. Would you please lead us in our salute to MS with middle finger extended, of course. Ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3.
FUMS. I can do it both ways because I'm bilingual.
Do it.
FUMS.
Yay! Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it.
Kathy. Thank you for your time, man. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you listening to the FUMS podcast show. Be sure to subscribe to it so you won't miss an episode. You can do that right on the website at FUMSnow.com. While you're there, sign up for the free email list so you'll be among the first to know of any new findings in MS research, new therapies and products, as well as any blog posts and podcast episodes I release. Want to chat with others in the FUMS community? Join us on Facebook at FUMS Now. Thanks again, and don't forget to talk to the stupid disease as it deserves. Tell it FUMS every day.